What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome back to the Motor City Bluebeard podcast, where we talk all things Detroit sports, Detroit Lions, Detroit Pistons, Red Wings, and Tigers. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the Detroit Lions and the recent news that Maxx Crosby wants to leave Vegas, and his number one spot he'd like to come is the Detroit Lions. Is this possible? Could this happen? We're going to talk about it in today's video. We're also going to touch on some staff moves for the Lions and some recent returnees to the Detroit Lions as well. All that and more on this episode of Motor City Bluebeard Podcast. So the news broke this week that Maxx Crosby, the fantastic edge defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders, wants out of Vegas, and his number one place he would like to end up would be the Detroit Lions. So obviously we haven't seen an interview where he specifically says this, but he went to Eastern Michigan. He has a history in Michigan. It's home for him, and he has grown frustrated in Vegas. They keep having rebuild after rebuild, starting over with new coaches. He's had some injuries, and then when he wants to come back and play, they shut him down, even though he gets frustrated about it and wants to play. So I think he really does want to go to a contender. He has mentioned his love of Detroit and gave them their flowers in the past. And of course, the connection with being a Michigan native, going to Eastern Michigan. He's got some love for the state. And also, but he also has said in interviews, I'd love to play for Mike Vrabel. Of course, that could have been context when they're talking about the playoffs and how New England's looking. Who knows? But until we hear it from him directly, it's just all saying pie in the sky. This would be great. Could it happen? Yes. Should it happen? Oh, yes. Will it happen? Brad Holmes has not really given us the feeling that he would make a move like this. It would clearly cost you some first-round picks, maybe two. Think of the Micah Parsons trade with Green Bay. Now, Maxx Crosby's a little bit older, so maybe you could get away with maybe a first and a second, and maybe another pick and then a player. So what would that look like? Who would they want? Who do the Raiders need? Maybe the Lions could trade one of their defensive linemen. They do have a surplus of them. Not all of them are great, but maybe that and some picks would entice them. Who knows? But I would absolutely love this. This has been a dream of mine for a very long time, ever since the first whispers of Maxx Crosby being on the trade deadline. I've wanted the Lions to go after him. I think him and Hutchinson would be so elite and so hard to stop. They both have high motors. They both are hard to handle. And if you had both of them in there, you try to take out one, that's going to make it really easy for the other. And the focus on them on the edges will help the defensive tackles have some openings. Like, it would be incredible for the defensive line. And suddenly the secondary wouldn't matter quite as much, because the quarterback's not going to be standing there all day putting defensive backs on an island. So I think it would be amazing. If I were Brad Holmes, I would get it done no matter what it takes. But I don't know. We'll see. I will be ecstatic, because you think, yes, you have to give up a first-round pick or maybe two. And if you did that, we hate the thought of that. But at the same time, the Lions should be good, and we should be picking at the end of the first round. And what do we want to get in the first round this year? Most likely an edge. So you just think of it as getting your edge. He's not so old that he's not going to be around for a bit. They have a decision to make after the year, how they could figure out how to sign him. But still, I would say go for it. This team still has an elite offense. You've made some moves that I really like. I do really like Petzing. I think he's going to be a great fit. I love the hiring of Mike Kafka. And if the defense can be solid and healthy, and you could help that a lot by getting Maxx Crosby, this team could be a Super Bowl, a team that goes on a Super Bowl run easily. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye out on it. Of course, I'll make content the second it happens. But I'm pretty excited about the chance of it happening. But I don't know. Brad Holmes has not shown that he's willing to make a move like that ever since he first got the job and traded Stafford for Goff and picks. That's really been the only huge trade he's made. So time will tell, but we'll see what happens. Well, speaking of trades, it sounds like from interviews that David Montgomery did during Pro Bowl week and Super Bowl week that he maybe is not going to be leaving. He was interviewed and was talking up Gibbs and the rotation and how great they are together and how the Lions need both backs and all this stuff. And he sounded like a guy excited to make another run with the Lions. And I hope so. I love David Montgomery. I think him and Gibbs together are fantastic. Last year was just weird. The running back carry split and everything was just off, and their offense suffered for it. He's really a great pass protection blocker also, and when he's running well, you go hot with him, and when it's Gibbs, you go hot with him. But it just seemed like last year they were forcing too much with Gibbs, and it just didn't work. So hopefully they can get back to doing things the right way. Petzing's great with run game offense, so I think that's going to be good. And speaking of Petzing, I love, the more I've sat with it, the more I've heard, I love the hire, especially when the report came out that Ben Johnson really wanted Petzing to be his offensive coordinator. That makes you feel even better. But I also love the hiring of Mike Kafka. We still don't know what his role is going to be, higher up offensive role. He could be pass game coordinator, but then that's what David Shaw does. But is David Shaw on the way out because he was kind of tight with John Morton? I don't know. We'll see. But whatever Kafka does, it doesn't hurt. He's a brilliant mind. He's really good with quarterbacks and the passing game. So between him and Petzing, I feel like it's an Avengers of offensiveness. And I really wanted Kafka as the offensive coordinator. So the fact that we got a young guy that's really could be a genius in Petzing that we can have for a little bit, and they still got Kafka, I'm over the moon. I'm so excited for what that means for the offense. We just got to figure out that defense, and they'll have to figure it out through free agency, the draft, and hopefully trades by getting somebody like Maxx Crosby. But we shall see. I'll do some content soon talking about some draft targets, free agent targets, draft mock drafts, all that stuff. But the other interesting thing was that Levi Onwuzurike and Josh Paschal both came back to the Lions. And of course, when you hear that, everyone thinks, because these guys have been hurt all the time. But they're coming back on very minimal contracts for 1 year, basically nothing, in the scope of NFL contracts. So if they can stay healthy all year and they hit and they're great depth pieces and they go off, then it was worth it. If they get hurt again or they do nothing, really not out anything. We can release them. It's not going to hurt our cap or anything like that. So I like it. Hey, I liked both of them coming out of college. I thought they had a shot to be good, but they've both been plagued by injuries. And as long as they're not who we're relying on, I don't mind bringing them back on a very cheap contract to say, here, see if you can win a spot in the rotation, if you can do something, one more chance, I'm fine with that. But they are not the answer, so they still need to get more on the defensive line. That's going to do it for this episode of the Motor City Bluebeard podcast, this Detroit Lions episode. Brand new channel. Once again, if you had a good time, please consider subscribing, giving me a like, helps the channel grow, and be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know if you think the Lions will get Maxx Crosby and what you think it would take. I respond to every comment. Cannot wait to talk to you down there. But that's all I got. So I will see you in the next video. And until I do, as always, go Lions.